We're going to go ahead and go to, I believe, hopefully I get this right, it's Cambo in Iowa, who wants to talk how Christians view communism. And maybe you could elaborate on that further.
Hi. Christians usually view communism, they're atheists, so therefore that's why communism is bad and evil. And I think the dynamics are a little bit different. And if you think about why is the government bad, that explains it a lot more.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. What's the issue?
So basically, why is communism bad? And it's not because of atheism. So if you think about the governments that are bad and evil, then they all have certain characteristics. And the biggest thing, I think, is the issue of power. If you're going to keep power, and your authoritarian regime, you're going to do things in order to keep power. So you've got a power system, you have one-party rule, and then the government is the people are to serve the government rather than have the government serve the people. And that's a big distinction.
Cambo, can we back up a second? I'm wondering what you mean when you say Christians, what they think, because presumably you don't think all Christians, right?
No. Well, I'm basically saying when Christians like to use communism as a cudgel against atheists.
Do they? I don't know that that's happened since, like the fall of communism, but atheism isn't communism. So why would a Christian use communism as a cudgel against atheism when I'm an atheist and not a communist, and as is the case with most atheists?
No, I agree with that. But I mean, I often hear sometimes that the argument is atheism leads to communism, or that's, because communists were atheists, therefore atheists are bad.
Well, I guess you have to take this on an individual case-by-case basis of the person who'd be claiming that. But I would view it similar to like when someone says, "Oh, you're an atheist, therefore you must be a naturalist." It's like, well, I know people who are atheists that consider themselves non-naturalists. So, all you have to do is really just show that there's no logical entailment from one to the other.
I mean, what you just described is people say atheism leads to communism. Communism is bad, therefore atheism is bad. First of all, communism isn't necessarily bad. It's a failed political system, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily morally bad. But just because atheism might in some cases lead to communism doesn't mean it inevitably does. Atheism doesn't inevitably lead to communism any more than breathing does. And so as long as they're going to make super simple, fallacious arguments, let them. I'm happy to have easily swatted away bullshit arguments presented against atheism, because there's nothing about atheism that necessarily entails communism.
Yeah, it's kind of like the conditional. You have like, if God exists, then objective morals and duties exist, right? And it's like all you have to really show in these kind of examples is there's no entailment from atheism to, say, like moral subjectivist or something. Like you can be a moral realist, and so the only point I feel like you have to make is just to show that there's no entailment other than the fact that you just don't accept the proposition that a God exists. That's it.
Sure, I agree with that.
I think, quite frankly,
one of the things that
instead of using communism against atheism, I think they used atheism against communism. In the 1950s, when we were fighting the Cold War of, these are communists, what did they do? Well, they portrayed the communists as filthy atheists, and then added "In God We Trust" to the money as a requirement in 1954, and added "Under God" to the pledge. This was a reaction to the fear of the godless communists, but that was because there was already a fear of the godless and there was a fear of the communists, and where these two things intersected, they got double duty on let's pick a boogeyman to point to. But none of the arguments are good. And we settled this, years before I was born, and I'm not young.
Yeah, I typically see the more state-forced secularism being kind of presented than communism, but that's as to the point Matt made. I mean, I wouldn't be able to touch on that, but I typically see like just state-forced secularism is kind of the thing that somebody presents to me, which is also for the same reasons easily swatted away.
Yeah. Well, one of the defenses I kind of want to put in is socialism versus communism. And communism needs a revolution for to take place, and it's one party system, versus the European socialism. All that is democratically done, and it can be done, and it can be taken away. And a trope I hear on Facebook is socialism always leads to communism, and that's just not true.
I'm at a loss, and I don't want to be mean, Cambo, because it's not my show, but I'm not fond of having atheists call in to tell me what Christians believe. I'd rather have Christians call in to say what they believe so that we're never accused of straw manning them. And while communism and socialism are completely different things that aren't connected, and you're right, I don't know what the point is. We might as well be saying, water's wet and it's H2O. And if any Christian suggests that there's a God because of H2O, well, we should be ready to point out that water's wet. I'm not following why this is relevant to discussions about religion or atheism or anything in that ballpark.
Okay, yeah. Fair enough. You guys have a great day.
Yeah, you too, Cambo. Call us back. I mean, I would just think about implications of certain things as opposed to like epistemically if some position is true, less amount about like the implications of a position, because I mean that's debatable for different reasons. But
and we hear more about socialism nowadays anyway, because a ton of us are actually socialists of one stripe or another, and the United States, despite being a democratically elected republic, has elements of socialism within it. And you can't avoid that. And so having those kind of conversations about where the lines fall on, socioeconomic policies and political policies is one thing. But apart from the fact that there were communist regimes which outlawed religion, and it basically set up the state as the religion, the state became the equivalent of the unquestionable, God model that was controlling everything. Outside of that, yeah, I think it's more of a boogeyman than anything.
Sure. Yeah.